And showtime, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the ChannelPro 5-Minute Roundup. A look at news, trends, and tips for the SMB channel in 5 minutes or thereabouts. My name is Rich Freeman. I am executive editor of the ChannelPro Network. I am also a co-host on this program. I am joined this week, as every week, by my co-host, Eric Simpson, a business transformation and improvement consultant for IT providers and MSPs. Eric, while I untie my tongue, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Rich. I'm doing well. I think it's the highs and lows of quarantine. I'm on a high today, so this is a good day for me. How about you?
Fantastic. You know what? I guess that's right for me too. I mean, here in the state of Washington, I'm in Seattle. We are sort of beginning to reopen a little bit, and so the barber shops and the hair salons have opened up, and I have made an appointment next week. I'm going to get my first haircut in months. I don't know how many of them, but I'm looking forward to it already.
Wow, the excitement of grooming again. Nice.
Exactly. Well, here's something else that's exciting. Let's dive into our top story of the week here, and it comes to us from SonicWall. And it concerns a solution that they introduced this week that they have been working on for quite a while, actually, but it turns out to be more or less perfectly timed for the times that we find ourselves in right now. And they're calling it their SD branch solution. It's basically designed to be a complete end-to-end software-defined networking solution that makes it significantly easier to set up a branch office, or really any office, it could be a small business, with software-defined networking. Really what they did, they took a number of different products that they already had and sort of pulled them together and pre-integrated them. So they took their wireless access points, they took the firewalls they're best known for, they took the management interfaces that people are already using, wove those together a little bit so that they could exchange information, and MSPs or IT departments could administer the whole thing centrally. They added a couple of significant things. So first of all, the one hardware piece of the solution that was missing was a switch. And so SonicWall has now introduced a switch. They've never had one before. They're not really looking to conquer the networking market per se, but in order to deliver a complete software-defined branch solution, there had to be a switch in the equation. So they have created one now for the first time. And then they also added zero-touch provisioning functionality. Now, they have had some of this before, but they have significantly enhanced it. And so the idea, now you think about this, at any time, at any moment in time, if you're an MSP, the ability to ship off hardware in boxes to your customer and have that setup process be so simple that the customer on their own can just sort of plug it in, and the device is going to identify itself over the internet, and the MSP never has to roll a truck. It all kind of just gets configured remotely through the centralized interface. That's a good thing at any time. But at this particular time, when there are a lot of MSPs who are cautious about, wary about dispatching a technician to a customer site with the coronavirus and COVID-19 obviously still very much in circulation, this turns out to be an especially timely solution. So that's not why they created it, but the timing of its release, Eric, turns out to be fortuitous.
Holy cow, Rich! It's a game changer. It is a game changer. When I read your article, I just went, finally. Right? Finally, where, I mean, I even took the idea in my mind and ran with it. I could see an MSP racking, these components into a small little rack, shipping the whole thing, right? The end customer then just puts it wherever they want, plugs it into power, plugs the drop in that's conveniently labeled, and the MSP then provisions and sets it all up. And even from a multi-location perspective, I remember back in the 90s, I was working for a very large enterprise organization, corporation, and they had me and another guy travel to 17 international locations to set up wide area networking. Can you imagine what that would have been like had we had that technology then? We're just going to ship these things out. Give me a call when you receive it, plug them all in. And, if you go further into your analysis, Rich, these things actually find each other on the wide area network and allow you then to create all of these connections, correct?
Correct, yeah.
It is fantastic. Now, this opens up a whole new era for MSPs. Now I can sell my services to anyone, anywhere. Oh, you need remote service test? Sure. Let us send you out our, you'll get a box in a week or two. Plug that in, and we'll be able to set you up and begin providing support from a remote service test perspective and wide area secure networking connectivity. I mean, I love that, all of these things talk to each other. How many access points do you need? All right, they'll be in the box, right? Boom. Fantastic stuff.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting point, actually, that you make about a solution like this enabling channel pros to kind of think broader geographically. It's probably a good topic for us to dive into on a future episode, because I'm already talking to some channel pros out there who have realized, maybe I've been closing business with customers via Zoom and Teams as it is. Maybe it isn't as important as I used to think it was to be in a room with somebody. So maybe I can expand the territory that I'm dealing with. And yeah, this is another way that would enable that. But yeah, the scenario that you described, the sort of corporate IT scenario where a larger business with dozens, hundreds, thousands even of branch offices needs to provision software defined networking, that was the original use case that SonicWall had in mind. But they have become, in the last couple of years or so, much more interested in the managed services channel as a route to market for them. They've been, adding subscription pricing and multi-tenancy to their interfaces and so on. And so this turned out as well to be something that fits very nicely for MSPs, because you can support multiple locations, even if it's one location per customer. Obviously, if you've got a bunch of different customers, this kind of capability is going to be really useful.
I mean, I'm even just, my mind is still going. I mean, let's drop, your BDR in the rack. Let's drop your security appliance in the rack. I mean, why not? This opens up a whole new world of possibilities, and the most creative IT providers will see it the way, they'll even take it beyond what I'm just thinking now, just kind of spitballing with you for the first time, and create whole other valuable services and revenue streams to geographically displaced clients that they're not working with today. I foresee it.
Well, let's take a look at your tip of the week here, because it also kind of involves maybe adapting, modifying something a little bit, putting it to a different use from what it was perhaps originally intended for. And that you were inspired by the recent space launch.
I was captivated, as were many Americans. When we finally, after 9 long years, were able to launch Americans into space to dock with the International Space Station without hitching a ride from any of our international partners. We did it all under this collaboration between NASA and SpaceX. And Sunday morning, I just got up early and I watched the launch the day before. I watched the docking procedure on Sunday morning, and I had no idea, Rich, what process intensive exercise it is to do anything in space. I mean, I figured there was process, right? You don't just, all right, see you guys on Tuesday. We'll see you when we see you. But what captivated me was when the renamed Endeavour, the Crew Dragon module, docked with the International Space Station. And even though the receiving team that was on ISS had gone through their pre-check and all that and had the hatch open, it took a few hours before the astronauts on the Crew Dragon were able to enter the International Space Station. And this was because they had the most intensive checklist of process that I can remember seeing in any situation. And so they had their tablets out, and they had all of these checks and things that they had to do before they were able to exit the Crew Dragon into the ISS. And just the specificity of them calling out to each other, all right, item 1000.1, ensure that this valve is off. So the astronaut would, valve is off, they would radio down to SpaceX 1000.1, valve XYZ is off position. Copy that, Crew Dragon, move on to 1000.2. And this went on for hours until they were all done with their checklist and then proceeded to the next phase, which was exiting the capsule into the ISS. And so it just got me thinking, what can we learn from this? And I turned it around to what we do in our everyday lives as MSPs and service providers. I'm not suggesting that we have that granular of a process and checklist for everything, but hey, the more the better, right? So I'm challenging our viewers today, how documented and checklist and confirmation driven are your processes? And are you holding your teams accountable to continue to document and refine those processes and evolve them over time, right? It doesn't become static. It's always a continual process improvement exercise when we're tweaking and tuning things. But holy cow, that would add a tremendous amount of cost to any, IT practice, just like, putting in any additional overhead of process from that perspective. But there's got to be a happy medium, right? There's got to be a way for us to give just the right amount of documentation and checklist and process and hold our teams accountable to that. That ensures that we're providing our customers and clients a consistent service experience. And again, allows us to be as efficient and effective and as profitable as possible.
Yeah, and the whole point for these folks in space to have that kind of rigor and have it all spelled out, and everybody's got the tablet or whatever in front of them. It's obviously a matter of life and death there, and so this process has to be done correctly. And in the managed services world or wherever in IT, it's not a matter of life and death typically, but if you want something done right, you need to do it rigorously and consistently. And if you're going to do it the right way each time, that all needs to be documented and spelled out, and people need to be able to see what those steps are and document that they went through all those steps. So yeah, it would be overkill, to create the 5-hour process for what most channel pros do on a daily basis. But there are definitely lessons to be learned from that kind of thoroughness in terms of making sure you get to the desired outcome each and every time.
Yeah, it made me want to do better. Seeing what they did. And of course, yeah, you make a great point. It's life and death and things like that. But, when you're doing those kinds of things, you're also identifying when you get something that is anomalous, like the outcome that you're expecting isn't what it should be. And we saw some of that, during the docking and stuff, and they'd radio down, they'd be like, okay, hold on, let us check a few things on our end. And, there was that great teamwork to kind of resolve, whatever issues there were and work toward, a common goal. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
Well, that is pretty cool. And it leaves us with time for just one more story this week. Comes to us from Hackster, which is a website that's owned by Avnet, actually, and it's a place where do-it-yourselfers in the tech world kind of share their designs and their ideas. Sort of a fun place to explore. This particular Hackster entry comes from somebody named Nick Bild, I believe. I hope I'm pronouncing the name right. And I thought it deserved to be brought up here. Because, a lot of these kind of do-it-yourself things, it's like, well, here's a really cool way to, cool your beer faster or something like that. But this is actually something that I think a lot of folks in the audience here could potentially benefit from, as we are all doing so many meetings in Teams and Zoom these days, and maybe not thinking real carefully about the possibility that we could have to get up out of the chair at some point. So what Nick Bill did essentially is set up something that monitors him as he is on a video call, and if his, say, underwear becomes visible to the camera during the middle of the call, because he's wearing his PJs or whatever, he gets up and something he doesn't want the world to see becomes visible, the camera automatically shuts itself off. How cool is that?
Yeah, that is an interesting hack. I've been caught wearing not long pants, but shorts, right? It's California after all, Rich, and I have stood up a couple times to like shut a window or something, and show a little sexy leg here and there. But yeah, I try not to do Zoom calls, in my underwear or PJs whenever I can help it. But hey, some folks might find that a very valuable hack.
People slip up sometimes, and it's nice to have the camera cover for you.
You bet.
Well, that is all the time we've got this week on the 5-Minute Roundup. Thank you so much for joining us, folks. If you like the show, you'd like to take a look at some older episodes you didn't see, keep up with the new ones as they become available. Best thing to do is go to the ChannelPro Network channel and subscribe there, and make sure you click that little bell icon if you want to get notified when new episodes become available. To read more about the SD branch solution from SonicWall, to get all sorts of other great business growth ideas for your company, go to channelpronetwork.com every day. We have got great new content for you there on a daily basis. To learn more about Erick and the work that he does with his clients, go to ericksimpson.com. That is ERICK Simpson.com. So once again, thank you very much for joining us. We will be back again next week with another episode of the 5-Minute Roundup for you. Until then, folks, please enjoy the rest of your week. Erick and I are enjoying the rest of your week already.